You are listening to Small Business Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives small business owners the straight talk on productivity, time management, business systems, leading your teams, strategic decision-making, and mindset. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the productivity specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Small Business Straight Talk podcast. Today is episode 357, Recruiting High Performers and Making A-Player Hires with Laura Couvillon. If you're a small business owner who wants to learn effective business strategies, improve time management, and elevate productivity to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. Today, I am looking forward to bringing our guest, Laura Couvillon. Laura is a recruiting guru and online business management expert. As co-founder of Integrate Up, she's had a front row seat learning exactly what it takes to build companies from the ground up, and especially how to build an ideal team of A players who support a visionary CEO as they create a company that is ready to scale and grow. And now, let's meet our guest and get to the straight talk. Welcome to the podcast, Laura. How are you today?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me, Amber.
Absolutely. We got to do a little pre-chat, so I'm already excited about this conversation, and I hope our listeners are too. Before we jump into the meat of today's conversation, I'd love for you to share a bit about yourself that we didn't hear in your official bio and answer the question, like, why recruiting?
Well, hopefully a lot of your listeners can resonate with my story because it was a lot of left turns and right turns. So I have 10-year corporate experience planning large conferences and trade shows. It was fabulous. I got to travel all over North America, even Europe. Then I had babies and travel was not as glamorous. So I left that behind. I stayed at home for a couple of years. And when I was, as a stay-at-home mom, when I was ready to re-enter the workforce, I did not want to leave the home. I wanted to be with my babies and be around them. So that's when I learned about this online business world, direct marketing, whatever we want to call it, existed. And I started working fractionally. I came up as an operator. I'm an operator at heart. And then I was serving as this fractional COO role. And anyone who is a service-based business, they know as that solo role, you can only handle so many clients. So I had people still asking to work with me. And I said, well, I'll introduce you to Susie. I know she's does this too. And I did that one time and the relationship did not go well. And I did not like having my name attached to that. So then I started helping people hire. And then I had a business partner at the time. She turned to me and she said, I think we could make a business out of this. And so in January 2020, ironically, before the world shut down, before COVID, we started and launched Integrate Up. And so we have 5 years coming up this January. And so I had no recruiting background, but now through my experience with the company and trainings, et cetera, I have a robust one. But I think my love for people, I'm the Enneagram 7, I'm the extrovert, I'm the love all that woo stuff. That's my number one on the Clifton Strengths. I think that gives me the drive for doing this. I love connecting people, and it's a happy business to be in because when a business owner finds their perfect hire and a new person, someone looking for a job finds a role, everyone's very happy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I can trace back a few, when you've been in business this long, you can trace back a few things where you're like, when that happens, it's always a big win for the business. And one is always a great hire. I can think back to every time my business took a big leap, it was from a great hire. And the second was a great coach, business coach, right? Like those are my two things where I always saw this like exponential growth or this like new season in the business. And I think we can all get excited about that especially when we need help and we can't do this thing, called business on our own. We really need to look for people that can come alongside us on this journey.
Absolutely. I tell everybody that I talk to in my company, clients, once you have that A player, once you hire someone that is a high performer, you cannot unsee it. You can't unexperience it because it catapults your business from ground floor to skyscraper. It just makes massive changes that are so exciting.
Yeah. And I say it with my clients too. And when they get that great hire, what I love is that they no longer lower their standards for other hires, right? Like if you haven't experienced it, you're just like, it's kind of like hard out there. It's hard dating, dating to find the employee. And then you find this great person and you're like, oh, whoa, if I did this once, like what could this look like if I got another one and another one? So I love that it helps raise the standards for ourselves.
Absolutely.
Well, let's dive into recruiting. I would agree with you that I think it was a smart move to go get all this knowledge and expertise and start a business with recruiting because it is a big need. It's not just a need because that's what businesses need, but it's a huge skill set gap in many business owners. And so I'd like to just start off there. How does a business owner approach filling the gap, feeling like they don't have the tools or the expertise to be able to make that A player hire?
Yeah. So hiring can be funny because it's not rocket science. You can Google it. You can go to ChatGPT and it'll tell you how to do it.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of business owners that come to me after they've done it and it's overwhelming, it's time consuming, or they end up with the wrong person and waste a lot of money. And that's the tricky part about it that you don't see going into it is, oh, if I do pick the wrong person, I've had someone tell me they've spent $80,000 and no return on that. And that's a real number that is at risk, right? So I always like to tell people before they jump in, whether they work with us or they work with someone else or they do it themselves, is get very clear on who you want to hire. The solopreneur, there's specific tactics, but if you have a team of 5, 10, really analyzing your org chart, your job descriptions, responsibilities around roles, what hats are you wearing that you can take off to really fully sit as the CEO, that is the most critical first step.
Yeah. Do you find that people just want to hire for like buzzword positions and like the thing that they think their business should have because they see other businesses have, but it has nothing to do with their actual on the ground needs?
It's so interesting you asked that. That trend has kind of faded, but yes, I can always tell when a big mastermind took place.
No.
And all of a sudden I have this happened a couple of years ago. I get a bunch of calls about, I need an integrator.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big role when in fact, some of them just needed an operations coordinator.
Right. You need an integrator before you even have a whole team. Like, how does that work for you? Who are they integrating? Who are they?
Yeah,
who are
I
they leading?
actually put together an algorithm for people where we inserted what's your gross revenue, what's your team size, and in order to analyze if they needed an integrator because it was clear a lot didn't. But yes, that does happen.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So what are some common mistakes business owners make before they even hire? Like when they just think of hiring, I guess, like what do you see business owners doing that are tripping themselves up to even get to the process of finding the right person?
Time is a big one, allocating time. I see people start and stop the hiring process. And so then they have hundreds of people that have raised their hand or applied or emailed, and the business owner doesn't have time to get to all of it. Or
and then they're not there when they do get to it, right?
They definitely will not be there. Or just they don't even start because there's no time. And so that is such a chicken and egg situation because if you don't bring someone on, you're just going to keep adding more and more to your plate. You're going to keep having the late nights, the early mornings. So bringing someone on board, it always hurts before it gets better. Always. I mean, if you feel overwhelmed now, bringing someone on board, you're going to get a little bit more overwhelmed. But right around usually happens at day 45. You feel that when the new person comes on board at day 45, you feel this, oh my gosh, I can finally breathe. I know they're taking things over and I trust them. That's usually about the time you feel the relief. And at day 90, it's like, all right, let's do it again.
Yeah. You forget, just like having babies, you forget like what it is like, all right, let's do this again. It was very painful when it was happening, but you just get a little time in there and you're like, I can do this.
Yeah.
I wanted to speak to, people that don't feel like they're ready, right? Like they want to hire. So time is a big one, right? They don't think they're ready for time, but like they also don't think they're ready for some other multitude of reasons.
Right.
And what are some of the reasons that you see business owners kind of self-sabotaging? Or like, what's that pre-checklist? Because well, I know I did a little research on you. Like, first, like, you need a job description. You need to know your org chart, right? Like, you need to have some foundational things. But what are those things that you think would set up someone to be either for themselves ready to hire, right, in the business? And what are the myths? Like, what do they really not need to have ready? It doesn't matter. I think that's an interesting question that would set them up to successfully hire.
Yes. So as business owners, we spend so much time planning is such a big thing. Quarterly plans, annual plans, go away for a weekend to actually plan out your year, what launches you're going to have or what products you're going to release or what revenue targets you want to hit. And it's usually around growth and marketing, but very seldom do business owners spend time planning your team performance, your team growth, what team members you need to attach to that growth. So if you're a service provider offering, maybe you're an agency model, the more customers you get, the bigger your team has to grow. Like that's the agency catch, right? Is keeping your profit margin profitable in order to serve customers and grow team. But are you planning accordingly? When we reach X customers, we're going to hire this role or this role. And so really building a team growth strategy about it. Similarly, layering in performance management to your current team and really getting them to up level, getting them on learning plans, really instituting a strong culture so that you can have those A players. If I said the word A player earlier in this podcast and high performer, and you thought, I don't think I have that, well, then you need to evaluate your current team and really understand where people's strengths are and maybe where they would be better suited to work somewhere else. So I think that's my big answer. I know I'm not giving tactical steps, but understanding what your strategy is and then aligning it with, I know we're going to dig into this, but a compensation structure that you can deliver upon as a business owner and attract talent. And I will say, we can talk about this, but when we work with a company, our part is to really put that company's hat on our head. So often we'll get to these interviews and people won't understand who we are.
Yeah.
Like, so you work for this company? That's what we want to hear. So we really represent their culture and everything. And our job is so much easier when the brand is strong, the business owner has something that's likable in the marketplace, or they're very clear on their culture values. And so they're almost attracting and repelling candidates in the same way marketers attract and repel in the marketing process. So,
and it doesn't have to do with size. Like it doesn't have to do with staffing size, doesn't have to do with revenue size. This is about creating a company that attracts on different things than just money and size, correct?
100%. And as a business owner, being mindful of that, and even on your website, putting a work with us page where you're collecting email addresses where people, doesn't mean you have a job opening at the moment, where people can get on a list when you do. That will serve you so well when you are ready to.
I like that idea.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see that flow of people that sign up because trust me, you have fangirls and fanboys out there.
So leverage it, like have that. So this is the analogy I use. For my clients that are like, I'm not ready. And I got to do all these things. I'm like, okay, what's critical mission? Meaning I have to get ready. So I go through it with them. And then I'm like, you got to get your fishing pole out there. Like if your fishing pole's not out there, you're never going to get the catch. Right. And so to your point, even if you're not even hiring, I love this idea of like collecting emails, or if someone were to email your company, like don't say, sorry, we're not hiring and delete it. Like have a folder, have something that you can go back to as a resource.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I would like to remind our listeners, as I do my clients, that big corporations have entire departments for hiring. Okay. So when you were mentioning about time and the resources, as a small business, we only have the capacity to push forth only so many projects at once. And I have to just say, this is a project. Like, even if you are hiring a company like yours to do the actual hiring, the preparing for it, to do the second interviews, to be ready to onboard and train once the employee starts with you, this is the project. And so when you zoomed out, I just am adding yes and saying planning quarterly and yearly. You can't say, oh, I'm doing this initiative, this initiative, this initiative, and then hiring be the plus one thing. It's really got to be the focus because it drives so much else in the business.
Yeah. Wow. Great point. I love that you added that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So today I wanted to dive in specifically around compensation because it seems like it's the elephant in the room. It's the thing that scares business owners the most. Most small business owners are not always in hiring mode. So it's not like you got a pulse on the market, right? Like you're not hiring for 10 times for this one role so you can see, over time and all the different things. And so once you're hiring, you're like, how's the landscape change? How do I go and find this information of, am I being competitive? Am I over offering? So I just want to just tee this off to you, putting the hat on of a small business owner that does not hire every day and not the same role all the time. How do they determine proper compensation for that A player, high performance team member?
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of empathy here because it's not easy because most people listening to this and the clients we work for are hiring throughout the US or the world. And so right away, if you are doing a remote position and you're advertising in the US, there are state by state laws that require compensation transparency. So just putting it out there where you say, this role, pays well, and then you ask people how much they want to get paid, that can get you in trouble. I'm using air quotes. It can get you in trouble in certain states. But
Yeah.
how do you know it's a fair range? So obviously I can share the data we've collected. I do always recommend, even if you put a pay range on your job descriptions, always asking, what is your ideal salary? What is your ideal rate to the candidates? And asking, is it negotiable? Because there will always be a bell curve. If you're going to pay $50,000, someone's going to put 20,000 and someone's going to put 150,000. And those are your outliers. Immediately know. And you're looking for the people, in between 40 and 60, right?
Right.
So you always want to put that on your job description and application. So I can talk specific about ranges I know, or we could go into, what additional compensation you can add to make your offer really juicy and attractive to the right person.
Yeah. I mean, if you're comfortable with specifics, but I want to put a big asterisk on this, like anyone could be listening at any time. We're not going into details of specific job descriptions. So what you call a title might be different for you. Like, I think I just want to put a lot of what do I want to say? Like cautionary that this isn't the tried and true. So if you want to share specifics, yes. But actually what I want to know is when you say I'm sharing the data, where are you getting this data? Like if a business owner is like, hey, I'm going to go do research, what are some resources for that research that can be relevant at that time?
Well, the data is really stuff we collect, right? So
okay.
so we always ask candidates what they are willing to, what range or how much they want to get paid. So that's the data we're collecting. And that helps us gauge when we're doing roles if we are paying enough, I guess.
Right.
So I know that's not helpful. You can't log into our system. I mean, a simple Google search will give you a range. And I will say I've done plenty of those, and you can feel confident that those ranges are pretty accurate. Where they wouldn't be is if you're recruiting out of New York or San Francisco, right? So the coast, you have to go a little bit higher.
Yeah.
But I can tell your listener, if you are just Googling, that is a safe place to be. You're not going to be wildly off. And so I will go into some examples. I'm sure this would be interesting to know. So the operations role, you can go anywhere from operations coordinator all the way up to, we already mentioned, an integrator. So our industry has several certifications for this integrator role, director of operations role that tends to be a leader on the team. I always think of roles as you have a doer, a manager, or a leader. And so the leader is high up there next to the CEO. So whether it's an online business manager, director of operations, or an integrator, A rate that is very healthy is $65 an hour if you're hiring fractionally. If you're going full time, a healthy rate is right around 100 to 120,000. And that's a big salary. So we can expect high performers, we can expect seasoned candidates that have a lot of experience. So they will be able to lead a team. So you don't want this role unless you have a team and you have multiple projects, et cetera. Now, an operations manager could get you just as far if you need help with project management, some light team management, some operations. This is a strong role to hire overseas that we filled quite a bit. And so, as we recruit from all over the world, you could start as low as $20 an hour there. And then in the States, go upwards to 40 to 50. The digital marketing manager role is a very popular role this year for us. I see a lot of CEOs that want to get a marketer on their team because that is the last hat they're wearing as the business owner. Because if you're in this space, likely you're very good at marketing. It's very nuanced. It's not something you can pull over from corporate. And so for this role, we find that the manager role, where they're still doing some of the tactical doing, but they bring strategy to the table, a healthy role, a healthy salary is anywhere between right around $70,000 and $80,000 a year. And go ahead, please.
I just wanted to, you said it subtly, but you said doer/strategy, right? And I feel like business owners just assume any hire, they should be coming up with the ideas and the strategy and all the things. Like, it's very different. You can have an incredible employee because they're a great doer, but as soon as you confuse that as they're the strategist, you're like, oh, they don't know their job. Well, maybe you had the wrong expectations and you weren't actually hiring for a strategist, even though that's what you expect out of the role.
Yeah, that is a great distinction that I always get my clients to make before we start, because those are two different skill sets. And strategist, you're not paying for an executor. You're paying for their mind, their ideas that they know work. So it's a very different, but often I find the sweet spot for small business owners is that they want someone that has some strategy that can kind of bounce off the CEO and this new hire, but can also do some, like if they need to hop in a funnel and change a color of a button, they can.
Yeah.
So
The fun stuff. Yeah. What about like an EA, like an executive assistant or VA or?
Oh, that's very much all over the board. So executive assistant can range. If you're a high profile person that needs someone, I've had someone that needs to travel and be available around the clock, that can get into six figures easily. And then a virtual assistant can go as low overseas as $3 to $5 an hour. So it's really, again,
this is why it's so complicated for the business owner. You're like literally doubling down on why this is so difficult.
But I can't say, I mean, not to say like, oh, we're so great at integrated, but that's where we always start. We never just say, okay, business owner, you said you want an EA, let's get started. We always start with a call to be, a form is filled out, and then we get on this fact-finding call where we uncover everything. And it is about 50% of the time we will change the title, because we really treat recruiting like a sales funnel, and the title of the role is just the headline. You're just trying to capture attention, and then they read the job description to say, yes, for me, no, not for me. And that title, integrator versus operations manager, they're thinking two different price points. So what headline will meet a price point that can get you the result you want? So it's not an easy answer, because it's not a quick conversation. Really analyzing, what do you need out of this? And back to the marketing role, I've had many conversations with business owners where they're like, yeah, I actually don't need to pay for that strategy. I have masterminds. I need an executor. Well, then
I have a business coach. I can hire a consultant. These one-off, more economical ways to get the strategy.
Exactly. So I'm sorry, I'm not like unveiling.
No, do not apologize. That's why I did this whole big disclosure. Like, I knew I was asking a question that is loaded. It really is. And I'm glad that we at least had this platform to talk about, titles matter. I'm so glad you said that. I've had clients where the title gets changed and they've had this role title in their business forever, and whatever, they're not getting any applicants. It's like, let's look at the title. Like, we don't need to be married to the actual role title and how it is in the business. especially if you're not looking for industry specific experience, because sometimes you have industry specific titles. And so you're already cutting off, if you're open to it, to having somebody outside of the industry fill the role, you're cutting out anyone that doesn't even know what that is, but they actually have every skill set that's needed.
Yes. That's actually a great point. Understanding how your title translates to corporate. So one, I will say that is very common in our industry is the setter. So in the sales department, you have your people who take the calls, but setters are very common. But if you look at corporate, those are called SDRs or BDRs. So sales development representative, business development representative, same type of thing. So if you're having a hard time finding a setter, you can go and change the title and you'll get so many more applicants. And that's just one example of exactly the title makes a difference.
Yeah. All right. How about now let's just say you figured out the compensation, you're competitive, you can afford it. What if you feel like you can afford it, but maybe you're on the lower end because you're a smaller company, smaller firm, smaller agency. And I say smaller again in air quotes. We're going to use that multiple times in this episode. Your brain is trying to compare to the bigger companies. Why would somebody want to work with little old me, little old business owner? And whether you're saying that externally or that's just the thoughts in your mind, it drives your action or inaction. So I just wanted to talk about that. How can a small business owner be competitive in the eyes of a candidate that has options to be with a larger company?
Yeah. Oh, this is a big one. And let me tell you, as a small business owner, you have so much to offer. And if you don't realize that, please hear this. Okay. So I'll talk about softer things. So your culture, we talked about just having a strong brand and promoting it and attracting people to work with you the same way you attract clients can go so far. But having a culture that is not something you just created at a retreat with culture statements and this is what I want, but you're actually taking action behind the culture you want in your company, whether that's a team retreat or you value freedom. So everyone has unlimited PTO, whatever it is for you, walking the walk behind your culture, that alone can attract people because we don't know where they came from. If it was a toxic culture that expected things that were just outrageous. So that's the first one I would mention. As a small company, you offer less bureaucracy, less red tape. You can move quicker. Someone can be empowered in their role to actually get things done in a way that you can't in a big corporation that offers more money. And
which is very gratifying for someone that is seeking that. Yeah.
Absolutely. They feel like they are a part of your mission, and they are. They truly are. And you need to treat them as such. And so that is often lost in large corporate America. So that's attractive, and mentioning that and talking about that is important. Now, compensation isn't just a salary. So I'm going to go back to numbers. So there's so many ways you can structure a compensation package. So you have salary that you do want to be within a certain range.
Yeah.
But then you can attach compensation to individual performance around a KPI. And, this is common in sales, but if you hit this, you get a percentage of growth or you get a bonus. And if you bring this person on to your team and your company grows, their compensation, if you think about this, is attached to money that you will only make if they're on your team. So you're not giving up any money in their compensation package. You're letting them have a piece of what's going to come in from them being a part of your team.
Incentivizing. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And it really aligns people with your mission again. You can do departmental performance. This is where, if the whole department hits a KPI, same premise. Team-wide incentive. This is one that you could get creative with and really gamify your team. I'm working with a company now that's doing this in their customer service department. So if the customer service department hits a certain KPI, then everybody's name gets in a hat. Once a month, they draw the name and they get something around $100. So a dinner out, an Amazon gift card, a new chair for your desk, whatever it is. And so it adds this level of excitement, fun, anticipation. And there's so many ways to gamify that, whatever you want to be. There's another compensation to add, which is kind of I call it a gross revenue goal, but it's an all team driving goal. And so there's this oil and gas company in Houston, Texas, where I live. One of my closest friends in college, she got a job there through a temp agency. She was an executive assistant to one of the officers of the company. So they were privately held. The CEO said, if we double production in the next 4 years, everybody in the company from the top down gets a $50,000 bonus. So that excited people.
Yeah.
And
That's a carrot.
Yeah. And so they hit it. They all got 50,000. Then he put another one. If we double it again, everyone gets either $100,000 or whatever car they want fully loaded. And they hit it. And they had this big unveiling. And she got this Tahoe that was the most loaded Tahoe I've ever seen in my life. But the point being, that's expensive, but that was extremely attached to growth. If we grow, I'm going to set aside this much money to evenly distribute among the team. Oh my gosh. It's all they talked about. It's all we talked about when we hung out with her. What's your goal coming? So it was at the forefront of your mind. So if you are a company trying to grow, putting one huge goal together and then you celebrate as a team when you hit it, that can be incentive.
You're getting the buy-in, right? Like and then everyone's contributing in the way that they uniquely can. But then everyone's rewarded.
Right. So if someone's just data entry, that data better be the cleanest data we've ever had in our entire life because so much relies on it. Yeah. And then random bonuses, you wouldn't put that in the compensation plan, but you would talk about, I have a client that does this and she mentions that she gives discretionary bonuses and she walks the walk. Someone I placed there last year has already received 2 pretty considerable bonuses just because they're growing. And that can be very incentivizing for a team member. So there's so much you can put on the table without saying, okay, yes, I'm going to pay you $50,000 a year, because the salary, once it's established and agreed upon psychologically, it's an agreement. It's not an exciting thing for the employee, especially when the annual review comes and they get, let's say they get a 4% increase, or they're exceptional. They get a 7% increase and they say they're so excited. Well, after 2 weeks, it becomes the norm and the excitement, the drive behind it goes away. It's now an agreement again. So the salary is just the agreement to get someone onto your team to say yes. And if you have these other incentives, and then I have more. I'm sorry to keep going, but
no, this is great. I want to give it like a toolbox of incentives, right? A toolbox of ways to attract people.
And if you think about this, what you are offering is going to attract the type of person that you want in your company. So soft benefits, and I've already mentioned soft, but stuff like your time off policy, if you have a wellness policy. So time off is an easy one. 2 weeks is a standard in the US. Now, if you go off 2 weeks, that's going to communicate something very differently than if you say, we have unlimited PTO based on manager's approval. That's 2 different places. And the stay-at-home mom who has kids at school is probably going to be very attracted to that unlimited PTO. The high performer who has no kids could care less. It's going to go. So if you see what you put out will attract a certain type of person. I worked with a company and they offered a lot of flexibility in terms of as long as you get your work done from 8 a.m. Eastern to 8 p.m. I don't know. The range was wild to 10 or 11 o'clock Eastern. Just get it done throughout the day. So it was for those parents that at 3 o'clock go dark and then they come back on around 7 or 8. And the company could have cared less. They're like, that's great. Whatever works for you, but you don't have to be at your desk all day. That is going to attract a huge population of people that want that freedom to be able to go to the dentist without taking time off, et cetera. So I'm stressing that, but that's a big one.
No, I agree. I think that the flexibility in the work has changed as more desirable since COVID, when people that were structured 9 to 5, corporate, very kind of strict, got a taste of, what does flexibility look like? What does it look like to be in the office a few days and then being able to work from home a couple of days? That trumps compensation a lot of times because you're directly influencing the quality of life. How much less stressful is it if you feel that you can go pick your kids up Or you got to find childcare, they're in aftercare. Like all of those things have expenses of both time, but actually monetary expenses that they don't need to worry about if they do have that flexibility being offered to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a candidate that turned down a 6-figure job and took one about half the salary because of the time adjustment.
Yeah.
So
I
that
want to just say something to this though. So I've seen this huge like tick, right, since COVID of like, business owners want to be so flexible. So I'm just going to say, let's talk to the other pendulum side. Don't be so flexible that you stop asking, what does the business need? Okay. So in your example, if there was this like wide range of, you just have to get your work done within this business, these hours in the day, that only works if that's really true for your business. So if this role is requiring you to be like your job and the success of what you're doing requires you to have access to this role, and they're coming on at 10 o'clock at night, and now you're getting messages at 10 o'clock at night about work and you don't work at 10 o'clock at night, that's not compatible. So I just want to say, we want to give flexibility. We have to ask what the business needs, and it's okay to have strong boundaries around what you are offering.
Absolutely. And when you if you have these time freedoms or whatnot, it also doesn't mean tracking your team member to performance. So having a clear scorecard of objectives they're hitting, KPIs attached to their roles that they're responsible for, success factors that they need to be doing on a daily, weekly basis. Those things do need to exist as well. And an unlimited PTO structure doesn't mean you get to take 27 weeks off a year, because you most likely won't be hitting the goals the company has for you. So yes, absolutely being realistic what the company needs and what you need as the business owner.
Yeah, excellent. So before I interjected, was there any more you wanted to share? I don't want to cut you short if there was something else before I jumped in.
Well, and then you can get as creative as you want. I know healthcare is a big one, but I would say about only 20% of the clients I work with offer that, and they still find amazing candidates. I've had people offer really good benefits, such as we'll pay for you to have your laundry done every month. When you have to travel for the company, we will pay for childcare or like pet care.
Now that is something I haven't heard. That's great.
Yeah. And that was really important to the business owner because she loved animals. So you can get as creative as you want here. An at-home remote office allowance is one I see, a wellness to a gym. You can make a robust package that, again, you're attracting with it written out, you're attracting your ideal team member. The same way you have your ideal customer, your ideal team member is going to care about having their pet care or child care covered when they travel, because that's probably a priority for them.
Yeah. And the win is they feel taken care of. But really, what if that was a no? Sorry, I can't travel because it doesn't make economic sense to pay hundreds of dollars for a pet sitter or additional childcare. So it's like a 2-for-1. They see it as a benefit, but also it's an easier yes to get the goal of traveling for business accomplished.
Absolutely. 100%. That's great.
Yeah. Okay. These are wonderful. And I think that the through thread or theme here is get creative. And a bonus would be to use it through the theme of what's your culture, right? Like, so if you're all about health and wellness and holistic and balanced life, then maybe you're going to do self-care PTO and some gym memberships and things like that. Just like you said, one of your clients, like pet animals was their passion. That's how they ended up with that idea. So be creative with the ideas. Let it be an expression of your own business, your personality, your culture, and your values.
100%. Absolutely.
All right. Well, you did mention something about scorecards and KPIs. And so I just want to shift to that before we close out today. Before we hit record, you did say that your company does help with evaluations, reviews, scorecards. And I wanted to dive into that a bit because, let's just say you find that A player, I keep calling it A player, high performance, whomever this person is, they're exceptional. You've trained them, but like, how do you offer that consistent challenge and accountability to them? And if you don't have the skill set, your company does provide this. Why don't we just talk a little bit about what is it, and how can a business owner use these as tools?
Absolutely. So when we work with a client just for recruiting, let's go back to when my company first started, we would just, the team member would start and we'd say, okay, we'll talk to you in a few weeks. Fingers crossed it goes well.
Right.
And often the business owner or the new hire would come back and be like, it's terrible. This didn't happen. This didn't happen. And what we were finding, I think when we really boiled down to why it wasn't working out is unmet expectations. And the business owner didn't really know how to onboard beyond getting people inside of systems, right? Like, let me give you access to Asana or whatnot. But it's so much more than that. So we now, all of our customers, we help them through the first 90 days. And so we'll meet and create an actual scorecard for the role. So everyone on your team needs a job description. That's kind of house maintenance. You have to do that. But every team member also needs a scorecard with, I call them the big 5 objectives. So this is, we're building on a back patio, or, we're live launching something, or we're rolling out a new thing. This is what we're focused on this quarter. All while you're still doing your job description, but these are your big 5 objectives: to launch this, to onboard Sally, whatever it may be. And so there's that. There's success factors I mentioned, very basic things you need to do on a daily or weekly basis. If you think about, there's KPIs on there as well. KPIs, if you're trying to lose weight, the KPI is you're trying to lose 20 pounds. So how much do you weigh each week? But your success factors are, what did you eat today? What's your daily log of food? So if you're trying to get
focusing on the behavior, not the result.
Exactly.
Which I have not heard it said that way. So that was very succinctly said. And I just want to highlight, I don't know if this is your experience, but sometimes it's hard to come up with a KPI for every role. Like really hard. Like sometimes I don't think that there is a KPI, even though there is truly they did good or they didn't do good at their job, but it's not connected to a true KPI. So go further into these, you call them success factors.
Well, and our scorecard in general has a mixture of subjective and objective measurement, because no team member can be boiled down and attached to a specific data point, whether they're driving it positive or negative. Even if you are responsible as a marketer to drive up whatever, maybe clicks or et cetera, there's so much more to that role. So we have a combination of both sides. And so objective is the opinion, and a success factor is objective because you can check off whether they've done it or not. So if you're responsible for funnel performance, you need to be in the funnel software every day, tracking the KPIs, literally, And so are they in there every day? Yes. You need, one that's across all companies, you need to communicate in Slack or whatever tool daily. You need to get to inbox 0. And these are things that, if not said, they don't always happen.
Or they're said, and then they think that it's not said every day. So now it's not a big deal or important to the business owner, right? And the business owner is like, I covered this. I like, how many times do I have to ask for you to get in Asana and communicate via your tasks in Asana?
Absolutely.
That was a great example. That's why it fired me up. It happens all the time.
And that's why I say the scorecard, it's a living, breathing document that allows you to have an honest conversation once a quarter with your team member, and you recalibrate the scorecard, but you're able to give objective and subjective measurement to their performance and then have a conversation there. But I do want to touch upon, you said a lot of roles don't have KPIs, which is absolutely true. Operations tends to be one that doesn't have clear KPIs because they're not a business driver. They're kind of a role that comes in and all boats should rise because of them. But the most interesting one I've seen is I worked with an entrepreneur that was just stressed to the max, and he needed an operator to come in to relieve some of the pressure so he could walk away as a visionary and get creative. And so his KPI was, what is my stress level on a measurement of 1 to 10? And after we attached it to 3 specific meetings he had each week, he evaluated his stress level 1 to 10 after each meeting. So it's a subjective measurement by him, but it's data. And at the end of the 90 days, we could see his stress had gone down. So odd, but it really worked to track.
I love that example. And what a great feedback for him, because he could still be stressed at the end of 90 days and be like, it didn't work. because that was his feelings about it and it was his most recent. But by tracking this data, it was like, no, we're on a good trend, downward trend. You're not going to just suddenly have no stress.
Right. It's not going to evaporate.
Yeah. All right. With regards to the success factors and, KPIs, you said it had to be a combination of both. And I just want to highlight something else. So let's say you have a KPI and the employee nails the KPI. Like whatever, they close 10 new clients, right? It's very clear. But they're horrible. They do not fit in with the culture. They have a bad attitude. Look, whatever, if you're not really doing this whole, full evaluation, how do you have that conversation where you're like, this isn't working? And they're going to be like, but I am doing better than everybody else. And you said I needed 6 and I got 10 new clients. Right? Like just forward think how that feels having that conversation if you're not setting it up to also have the conversation around all these other things that really matter to the business.
Oh, that's so true. And so 50% of our scorecard is based on culture and 50% are all these tactics I mentioned. Yeah. And so after you evaluate, you find out if someone's willing or unwilling to show up, which is the culture side, and are they able or unable? And so in that example, this person is able to do the job and do it really well, but they're unwilling to do it in the way you want them to do it. So they're unwilling and able. So they would then be a C player. And you would have conversations of like, I really love your performance. However, the way I need you to show up is XYZ, and providing some examples and giving them time to grow. And this is where the honest conversation comes in, because maybe they're a D on the disc and they're this bulldog because they're in sales and they're really abrasive. But as soon as you have that conversation, they're able to say, okay, I know that about myself. When I'm around the team, I'm going to lower it. I'm going to tailor it back, and they can show up differently. So bringing awareness. It's all about transparent communication, and that again, I say it's a living, breathing document. The scorecard is a tool to help you grow A players. It's not a tool to help you say yes or no, they're hitting KPIs. I think that's what every business owner wants to reduce it to, but you don't hire machines, you hire people.
That are very dynamic. So the evaluation should be dynamic. The example you gave about unwilling, but highly able, right? That was what you said. That is the textbook reason why business owners keep employees on way too long. Way too long, like that exact scenario, because it's this kind of like fight in their brain of like, well, they're doing the job well. And so if they're gone, the business is going to suffer. And then they almost lessen those soft skills or the things that are affecting the whole rest of the company. And look, most of us ran from corporate. And if you ran from corporate, you often ran because of the cultural fit where somebody was in that company making everyone else's life miserable. And you're like, why are they keeping them? Why has this person been here for 20 years, 15 years, whatever? And it's because they're highly capable and unwilling to get along with anybody else. And so leadership just ignores it. And so if that's why one of the reasons I ran, one of the reasons why so many people have run from corporate, why would you want to replicate that in the business? Why? Right. You have all the power. You have options. Let's not do that.
And that, by definition, that person is not a high performer.
Right. Yes.
And so back to the very beginning of this podcast, if you want to work with high performers, you can't unsee it. And that is not a high performer. There is somebody out there that is equally able and also extremely willing, and they're going to be a fit culturally. So this is your sign. That person probably needs to go.
Yes. And so as we're wrapping up and bringing this full circle, one of the things that you answered of like, how do you properly prepare and ready to hire? I don't know if you realized you said it, but it was like evaluating your current team to see if they need to stay there, right? So you might be all excited about this next hire, a new role in the company, but if you don't have like the current team, meaning replacing, like you oftentimes the next hire is a replacement, not necessarily a new hire on the team. So I love that you said that, and I didn't get to highlight that. I just wanted to bring that back full circle. And again, now you give them these tools of a scorecard and full evaluation on all these skill sets for the current team so that the new team members just roll into this process, which then becomes part of the culture, accountability, leadership, etc.
Absolutely. I love that. Perfect.
Great. Well, as we close out, was there anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to share with our audience about recruiting, hiring?
No, I guess so much, but so little. No, that was such a good conversation. Thank you for your really smart questions and your elaboration and everything you added to the conversation as well.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. This was great. I was really looking forward to it. So share with our listeners how they can find out about your service offerings, as well as I think you have a freebie. And if you want to share that, find out how.
So at our website, integrateup.co is the best place to find out about the company. And there is a freebie there that I know Amber will put in the show notes where you can download, I believe it's 27 job descriptions. So whatever role you're looking for, operations, marketing, sales, delivery, or finance, you can find it there and you're free to use that and edit it as you will.
That's an incredible tool. Really, it is.
Thank you. And you can also be found on LinkedIn at Laura Couvillon or Instagram at Integrate Up Online.
Excellent. We'll be sure to link out to all of this in the show notes, and then I will share the direct link to that opt-in in our outro. Thank you so much, Laura, for being here today and sharing your knowledge about recruiting and hiring.
Thank you for having me.
I have loved having you listen to this episode of the Small Business Straight Talk podcast, and I sure hope you found my conversation with Laura to be incredibly valuable. But I need to be straight with you. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So I have 3 simple things you can do. We have some amazing resources that will take your learning and implementation to the next level regarding your next hire. I have a free resource that you can get your hands on, and that is called Your Team Member Needs Assessment, plus a curated hiring podcast playlist from this podcast. And in that resource, I ask you specific questions that will help you determine what your best next hire is. I have found that when someone's ready to hire, there is a lack of clarity because it feels like you need so much help. So in this document, it will guide you through determining what is going to be that next best hire in your business. And then we're going to share with you a link to download the ultimate job description swipe file that Laura is offering you, the listeners of the Small Business Straight Talk podcast. And if you would like additional support, we'll have a link for you to book a call directly with Laura to talk to her about her services in helping you with your hire. All of those downloads and resources can be found in the show notes wherever you're listening to this episode, or head directly to amberdelagarza.com/357. Again, you can get all of these resources so that you can implement and make that next best hire the best hire. Head on over to amberdelagarza.com/357. And as you're winding down the year and thinking about what's possible in 2025, if you're thinking about hiring a business coach, now is the time to book that call. I would love to talk to you about partnering with you in the new year and taking your business to the next level and achieving your goals at new heights. Head on over to amberdelagarza.com/coaching to learn more and schedule that call. If you are new here, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you've been here a while, I'm going to invite you to leave a review wherever you're listening to this episode of the Small Business Straight Talk podcast. So that's my Straight Talk today. Until next time, have a productive week.